But this time, President Trump was elected on the explicit promise to bring an end to the war in Ukraine. So, I mean, he said that in appearance after appearance. So given that there is hope for a resolution, it sounds like, what are the terms to which you'd agree?
Well, the terms, I basically alluded to them when President Putin spoke in this ministry on the 14th of June. He once again reiterated that we were ready to negotiate on the basis of the principles which were agreed in Istanbul and rejected by Boris Johnson, according to the statement of the head of the Ukrainian delegation. The key principle is no non-bloc status of Ukraine, and we would be ready to be part of the group of countries who would provide collective security guarantees to
no
Ukraine.
NATO.
No NATO, absolutely. No military bases, no military exercises on the Ukrainian soil with participation of foreign troops. And this is something which he reiterated. But of course, he said, it was April 2022. Now some time has passed. And the realities on the ground would have to be taken into account and accepted. The realities on the ground are not only the line of contact, but also the changes in the Russian constitution after referendum was held in Donetsk, Lugansk republics and Kherson and Zaporozhye regions.
Yes.
And they are now part of the Russian Federation according to the constitution, and this is a reality. And of course, we cannot tolerate a deal which would keep the legislation, which I quoted, prohibiting Russian language, Russian media, Russian culture, Ukrainian Orthodox Church, because it is a violation of the obligations of Ukraine under the UN Charter, and somebody must be done about it. And the fact that the West, since this Russophobic legislative offensive started in 2017, and the West was totally silent, and it is silent until now, of course, we would have to pay attention to this in a very special way.
Would dropping sanctions against Russia be a condition?
I would say probably many people in Russia would like to make it a condition, but the more we live under sanctions, the more we understand that it is better to rely on yourself and to develop mechanisms, to develop platforms for cooperation with normal countries who are not unfriendly to you and don't mix economic interest and policies, and especially politics. And we learned a lot after the sanctions started. Sanctions started under Obama. They continued in a very big way under the first term of Trump. And these sanctions under the Biden administration are absolutely unprecedented. But what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, you know. And
well, but it also just drives...
They would be never kill us, so they are making us stronger.
And driving Russia east. And so the vision that I think sane policymakers in Washington had 20 years ago is, why not bring Russia into a Western bloc, sort of as a balance against the rising East? But it doesn't seem like that. Do you think that's still possible?
I don't think so. Recently, Putin was speaking at Valdai Club. Politologists and experts. He said we would never be back at the situation of early 2022. That's when he realized for himself, apparently, not only he, but he spoke publicly about this, that all attempts to be on equal terms with the West have failed. It started after the demise of the Soviet Union. There was euphoria. We are now part of the liberal world, the democratic world, end of history. But very soon it became clear to most of the Russians that in the 90s we were treated as, at best, as junior partner, maybe not even as a partner, but as a place where the West can organize things like it wants, striking deals with oligarchs, buying resources and assets, and then probably the Americans decided that Russia is in their pocket. Boris Yeltsin, Bill Clinton, buddies, laughing, joking, but even at the end of Yeltsin's term, he started to contemplate that this was not something she wanted for Russia. And I think this was very obvious when he appointed Putin prime minister and then left earlier and blessed Putin as his successor for the elections which were coming and which Putin won. But when Putin became president, he was very much open to cooperation with the West. And he mentions about this quite regularly when he speaks with interviewers or at some international events. I was present when he met with George Bush Jr., with Obama. Well, after the meeting of NATO in Bucharest, which was followed by NATO-Russia summit meeting in 2008, when they announced that Georgia and Ukraine will be in NATO, and then they tried to sell it to, we asked why. There was lunch and Putin asked what was the reason for this.
Good question.
And they said, this is something which is not obligatory. How come? Well, to start the process of joining NATO, you need a formal invitation. And this is a slogan. Ukraine and Georgia will be in NATO. But this slogan, became obsession for some people in Tbilisi first, when Saakashvili lost his senses and started the war against his own people under the protection of OSCE mission with the Russian peacekeepers on the ground. And the fact that he launched this was confirmed by the European Union investigation, which they launched and which concluded that he gave the order to start. And for Ukrainians, it took a bit longer. And they were cultivating this pro-Western mood. Well, pro-Western is not bad, basically. Pro-Eastern is also not bad. What is bad is that you tell people either or. Either you go with me or you're my enemy. What happened before the coup in Ukraine? In 2013, the president of Ukraine, it was Mr. Yanukovych, negotiated with the European Union some association agreement which would nullify tariffs on most of the Ukrainian goods to the European Union and the other way around. And at some point, when he was meeting with Russian counterparts, we told him, you have already, Ukraine had was part of the free trade area of the Commonwealth of Independent States, no tariffs for everybody. And we, Russia, negotiated agreement with World Trade Organization for some 15, 17 years, mostly because we bargained with European Union and we achieved some protection for many of our sectors, agriculture, some others. And we explained to the Ukrainians that if you go zero in your trade with European Union, we would have to protect our customs border with you, with Ukraine. Otherwise, the zero tariff European goods would flood and would be hurting our industries, which we tried to protect and agreed for some protection. Then we suggested to the European Union, guys, Ukraine is our common neighbor. You want to have better trade with Ukraine. We want the same. Ukraine want to have markets both in Europe and in Russia. Why don't we sit three of us and discuss it like grown-ups? The head of the European Commission was the Portuguese, Barroso was his name. And he responded, you know, it's none of your business what we do with Ukraine. We, for example, we, the European Union, we don't ask you to discuss with us your trade with China. Absolutely arrogant answer. And then the president of Ukraine, Yanukovych, he convened his experts, and the experts said, yes, it would be not very good if we have opened the border with European Union, but the customs border with Russia would be closed, and they would be checking, you know, what is coming, so that the Russian market is not affected. And he announced in November 2013 that he cannot sign the deal immediately, and he asked the European Union to postpone it for next year, until next year. That was the trigger for Maidan, which was immediately thrown up and ended by the coup. My point is that this either or. Actually, the first coup took place in 2004, when after second round of elections, the same Mr. Yanukovych won presidency, the West raised hell and put pressure on the Constitutional Court of Ukraine to rule that there must be a third round. And the Constitution of Ukraine says 2 rounds. And the Constitutional Court, under the pressure of the West, violated the Constitution for the first time then. And pro-Western candidate was chosen. At that time, when all this was taking place and boiling, the European leaders were publicly saying, Ukrainian people must decide, are they with us or with Russia? This either or is still very much
But it is the way that big countries behave. I mean, there are certain orbits, and now it's BRICS versus NATO, US versus China, and it sounds like you're saying the Russian-Chinese alliance is permanent.
Well, we are neighbors. We are neighbors, and geography is very important. And
but you're also neighbors with Western Europe. You're part of it, in effect.
Well, through Ukraine, and the Western Europe wants to come to our borders. And there were plans that, were discussed almost openly to put British naval bases on the Sea of Azov. Crimea was eyed, dreaming about creating NATO base in Crimea, and so on and so forth. We have been very friendly with Finland, for example. Overnight, the Finns came back to early years of preparation for World War II, when they were best allies of Hitler, and all this neutrality, all this friendship, going to sauna together, playing hockey together, all this disappeared overnight. So maybe this was deep in their hearts, and the neutrality was burdening them, and niceties were burdening for them. I don't know.